No state may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence. No, we want the right as we the people, at the state level, at the sovereign level. We are promised a Republican form of government in our Constitution. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, glad to be your host this June 10th, Tuesday evening, for episode number 211. Follow the money. Follow the money. Hope you're all well. A lot going on, so much going on that it's daunting, a daunting task to figure out what to talk about, which is part of the news. You know, what they talk about and what they don't talk about, what we see and what we don't see, shapes so much of the dialogue. And now, of course, we've got the AI in the mix, also creating reality. I am very nervous. Nervous is not the right word. I'm very opposed to this AI thing. And the reason I'm opposed is that I understand the people who have created this, what they intend to do with it. That's not to say the technology could not be used for good. For example, I am using Grok extensively on the X platform, and my reasoning is I'm going to use it as much as I can until they drag me away kicking and screaming, because the creation of this technology was envisioned a very, very long time ago. And while the technology could be used for human well-being, that's not the way it's tracking right now. So I can only, again and again, remind, and if you're a new viewer and listener, thank you, welcome, glad you're here. We broadcast from the studios of Free People Radio here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the belly of the beast. What we're trying to do is be a political action community. Why I say we're trying is we haven't dropped it into gear yet, which we're going to do very shortly. If you're watching me in whatever state you're in, this is a model for citizen action everywhere. And when I say citizen action, you see the citizens out in California with their mouths hanging open, watching their state endure what some are calling an insurrection and what others are calling peaceful protests. But those people that are in the street, they're in the street, as Susan likes to say. They're in the street. They are taking action. Now, I'm not supporting their actions when they're violent. That's not the way we are wanting to roll here in the Republic of the United States of America. But these people actually have the energy and the will and the focus and the organization to get off the couch and get to the streets. We're not even asking here at Free People Radio for people to go to the streets per se, unless that's their will. We're asking people to join the political parties, particularly in my case, the Republican Party. Although if you happen to be watching me and you're a leftist, join the Democrat Party. These parties are lacking in participation by everyday normal Americans that have good hearts, um, modest ambitions, and a desire to tell the truth. We're lacking that population. And we lack it because the people that are filling those party seats right now in both parties are the dregs of society. When good people do not participate, that leaves a void. Nature abhors a void. What's drawn in there is the worst, the most awful, the biggest liars that our society has to offer. You could go to precinctstrategy.com. Good morning, Tanner. Thank you very much. Tanner and I are trying to get good with this coordination of promoting things on the screen. This is the landing page of precinctstrategy.com, precinctstrategy.com, where you can go to get a tutorial in everything you need to know to get into the game of politics, no matter what state you live in. Critical, very critical. You could go to roycewhite.us, hit the landing page, scroll down, you're going to see Caucus Counter-Attack. You put your information in there if you're in Minnesota, and you are going to get to meet me because I am going to lead an effort over the next year to get citizens into the political process. Of course, I've been doing that for a long time. I'm just going to get sophisticated about it now because I think it's critical, and here's why I think it's critical. The big, beautiful bill, a House version, has passed, barely, but it did pass. Now we're waiting to see how the sausage gets ground in the Senate. In the House version of the bill, there is a section that reads as follows: get ready, strap on, strap in. This is rough. No state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, or automated decision systems during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. Let me read it one more time for you. No state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, or automated decision systems during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. That's in the bill. That's in the bill. I made the statement I'm opposed to AI. I'm going to use it. It could be used for good. You know, people my age, Tanner, when I was about, I don't know, I was about 8 years old.
Yeah.
There was a show that came on NBC. It was on at 8 p.m. on Monday nights. Star Trek, the original. You've probably never watched it.
Yeah, I never watched it. I know of it though.
Oh, it was mind-boggling. And I used to sit there, and there was a computer, and Captain Kirk would say, "Computer," and the computer would say, "Yes." And Captain Kirk would ask the computer the question, and the computer would give Captain Kirk back the answer. And it was the United Federation of Planets. Everything was good. It looked like it was a pro-human program going on.
Yeah.
Okay, they must have regulated that AI because then downstream, I was in my, I don't know, I must have been in my 30s. The first Terminator movie came out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Did you watch that one?
Yes.
Yes. And we looked at that and we said, that's a rather dystopian view of the future. Alien robots, intelligent, going around exterminating humans. That doesn't seem very friendly.
Yeah.
Two visions of reality. Where do you think we're heading when we can't regulate as citizens of the state of wherever you live? If this bill passed the House, it's going to have a different version in the Senate. It'll have to go to a conference committee. Wherever you are in this country, contact your congressperson and tell them to remove the clause preventing states from regulating AI, because this is anti-human. This is not in here for my good or for your good. And it is paired up with an executive order that President Donald Trump signed on May 23rd, 2025. This executive order was related to the creation of new power stations. In other words, nuclear power stations. Lots of them. In The Matrix, another movie you probably haven't watched.
Yeah.
The first movie,
Mhm.
when Neo went on down the rabbit hole, he woke up and he realized that human beings had been harnessed for their energy output because AI takes a lot of energy. And here is President Trump on May 23rd signing an executive order bypassing any kind of congressional process, has nothing to do with we the people. The Secretary of the Army is directed to establish a program to build and operate a nuclear reactor at a domestic military base by September 30th, 2028. 2028, that's 3 years. How do you get a nuclear power station, a nuclear reactor up and working in 3 years? Hey, that is called cutting the red tape, right? The Secretary of Energy must designate AI data centers at the Department of Energy as critical defense facilities and deploy advanced nuclear reactors to power them within 30 months. This executive order um, empowers the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense to create a network of nuclear reactors throughout the country to power this artificial intelligence. I was in here. I'm not going to mention this man's name, but I had a guest here,
Hmm.
and he was in government, and we discussed uh, the energy situation here in Minnesota, left to us by the quite well, should we say, well compensated Ben Folk of Xcel Energy, who ran that energy company from 2011 to 2021, paid himself $155 million to decarbonize. Now, that decarbonization project was dependent on credits, $10 billion of tax credits that were supposed to come here into Xcel Energy from the Inflation Reduction Act passed under the Biden administration. Guess what President Trump did? He nixed them, which means you, young man, your energy bills are going up a lot. And these decarbonization efforts are going to be halted in their tracks. We're going nuclear, and this legislator whose name I will not mention looked at me and said, if the Minnesota citizens knew the dire and critical state of our energy grid, our energy production, and our impending energy demand, people would freak out because there's not enough energy to power this AI and to keep people warm. You know, we're cold 6 months out of the year here. There's not enough energy. And he said, if we in the Minnesota legislature overturn the nuclear power moratorium today, there still would not be enough energy to keep people warm in the winter. There's a big problem. And he said, well, we're going to overturn the nuclear moratorium, which didn't happen. I looked at him. I said, that's not going to happen. He said, yes, it is. Turned out they couldn't do it. Well, it's all moot now.
What's the nuclear? What did you say? The nuclear?
Moratorium.
Yeah. What is that?
There's a legislative moratorium here in Minnesota. We have one nuclear power plant in Monticello, Minnesota, operated by Xcel Energy. One.
Yep.
Can't have any more. It's verboten because of legislative action here.
So
It's
he
a
wants that
moratorium.
overturned so then you can build more?
They couldn't do it. They could not get the legislature of Minnesota to agree to open the state to development of more nuclear power capabilities because we have a very progressive state and we're very much into alternative green energy. As I learned when I drove from the southern part of the state to the central part of the state in 2024, and I went through miles and miles of just windmills and
Yeah.
solar panels. I was shocked. I hadn't taken a drive like that, driven the back roads.
I thought nuclear was clean.
It's clean until it's not.
Yeah. Like if something like Chernobyl happens,
It's
but
not
there's a
clean then, is
clean.
it, baby?
Yeah. No.
And I'm going to tell you that plant up in Monticello,
Yeah.
uh, I was about 12. My mom, political activist, leftist, communist extraordinaire, looked at me and she said, we're going to Monticello on Saturday to protest the plant that they were planning to build there.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm not going. Well, I had to go. I was too young. And I was pissed the whole way and pissed there. And I talked to my mom and dad on the way up there and I said, boy, nuclear sounds like a good idea. Why are you guys protesting this? Well, they were opposed to nuclear energy, period, because they were children of World War II and they watched what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they said, certainly there's a better way. So this has been a political wedge issue for my entire life.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
kind of late to the party because I feel like everything I kind of see, it's risky, yes, but I just don't understand. It produces a lot of power and it's quite clean. So when people say like, "Oh, it's super dangerous," I don't.
what do you do with the waste materials?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Well, they're putting them in kegs or they want to send them to space so they can pollute space.
Yeah,
In other words, not in my backyard.
some Simpsons.
Yes,
Oh, I got a
exactly. You
book
got it.
myself.
If Tanner edits in something else here, like a cartoon, I won't be surprised. Anyhow, my point is President Trump has taken this out of uh, we the people's Republican process, and he has used his powers, his executive powers, to change the energy composition of the country, and he's going to do it in 3 years. This is the kind of build out that comes. This is a wartime allocation of resource, and this is stunning to me, just stunning. Who owns this energy? Not we, the people. This energy is owned by the federal government, the DOD, the DOE. There'll be some private utility participation in public-private partnerships, and the major buyers will be the tech companies that are going to build these AI centers all over the country. This is the AI control grid. I'm sorry, that's what it is. It goes with digital currency, which Tom Emmer is the top digital currency proponent. Well, let me just see how that works, Representative Emmer. Let's keep telling everybody how great digital currency is if it's done right. Then when our currency collapsed because of the $37 trillion of debt that this country is burdened with, when our currency collapses, we're going to have a reset. We're going to get a new digital currency. We're going to have the AI data centers built, the nuclear power built to power them. And then guess what? The digital prison is complete. This has been the dream of our security state and for the people that dreamed up the security state for a very, very long time. So please, going back to the beginning, you have a congressional representative, you have elected a congressman or woman in your district. Send them an email. This is political action. I'm saying figure out and don't say mean things, okay? Because this stuff is, monitored. No threats. The day will come, I'll put this stuff up on a website and you just can copy it and paste it. But there's a congressional, if you go to your representative's site, their landing page, there's going to be a way to communicate with them. And this no state, your state is barred if this passes. No state may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence. No, we want the right as we the people at the state level, at the sovereign level, because we are promised a Republican form of government in our Constitution. Republicanism posits that every citizen is sovereign. We're sovereigns. You're a king or queen of your own life. They'll take it away from us if we let them. If there is an outcry against this, this will disappear from the bill. Speaker Mike Johnson defended it. Marjorie Taylor Greene popped up and said, "Oh, geez, I missed it. I didn't read that. I wouldn't have voted for this bill." Well, you know what? It's 1,400 pages. In MTG, I have some sympathy for you. But you folks out there, the 435 of you that voted on this, you only have one job. Your job in show business, and read the bills. Read them. It's 1,400 pages. It's a lot of reading. I get it.
How much time did they have to read it?
Not very long.
Yeah.
It's part of the scam.
Yeah, that is hard.
Right.
But it is their job.
So I have something to say in response to my government's effort. And President Trump, I don't know where he's coming from on this. I'm not in his head. He knows things I don't know. But quite clearly, it's going to go down like this when they're sitting around the campfire. And I think President Trump, because of his age, has a predetermined bias towards whatever science brings us, it's good. Because he's 78 years old. The fruits of science have defined President Trump's life. He doesn't look at the downsides. And man, that guy lives on McDonald's hamburgers and Diet Cokes, and he doesn't get sick. So, he's an anomaly. But this thing is not cool, in my opinion. I'm urging you to take a stand. You can take a stand sitting on the couch at home. Just go to your phone, find your congressperson, and protest this. And I have something to say in response to this, because AI, the people that have developed AI have developed it out of this framework. Our biology is flawed. We have genetic flaws. It leads to suffering and death. That can't be right, and it doesn't seem right to any of us logically.
Mm.
Why are we're here, we develop all these competencies and all these loves and joys and memories, and then we're snuffed out? That doesn't seem right, does it? I'd like to live forever. I get it. And then my nature is flawed. 7 deadly sins: lust and greed and anger and jealousy and sloth and I mean, I'm flawed. Humans are flawed. And these people that say, wow, there's a workaround. We can fix this because they don't believe in God. If you believed in God, the workaround is the suffering and the sins are the challenge that make me who I am. And they don't see the value of that. And I get it. I know why they don't. They don't know God. And my mother just told me last week I belong in the 16th century. Because for me, God's not an anthropological concept. God is a relationship that I am blessed to have given the opportunity to develop. So these people are developing this AI, this technology. This is anti-Christian. It's anti-freedom. It's anti-citizen. It's anti-Republican. It's globalist in the extreme. So President Trump, please, what are we doing here? Are we in some kind of a war we don't know about? We must be. Because to build this nuclear power infrastructure in 3 years, wow. Man, it'd take 8 years to get a permit under normal circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I have something to say in response to this. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the light and the dark. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating me in your image. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me an American. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me free. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for healing the blind. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for feeding the people. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for releasing the bound. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for raising up the downtrodden. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the heavens and earth. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for providing for all my needs. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for directing my path. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for my American courage. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for crowning America with glory. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for restoring strength to the weary. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for sending your only Son to die on the cross that I might be saved. Forgive me, my Father, for I have sinned. Pardon me, my King, for I have willfully transgressed. For you pardon and forgive. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds, who is gracious and ever willing to forgive. Please play number 1.
Donald Trump is threatening to defund California, but it's Econ 101. California is a donor state. We provide over $80 billion more in tax revenue to the federal government than the federal government provides to the people of the state of California. We help pay federal bills. So if Donald Trump's going to continue to threaten 40 million Americans that live in California, maybe we should consider withholding those resources.
Well, that is Governor Newsom, who is now subsumed in the escalating protests in his biggest city of Los Angeles. There's also protests in San Francisco. We covered the protest here in Minneapolis. Tanner, we did that short clip on the ICE raids in Minneapolis. It blew up on the internet. Did you see the engagement with that?
Yeah, it's been doing pretty good.
Got lots of new followers. And if you're watching on Royce White's X page, please just take a minute and repost the links to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Rumble, please copy and repost the links. We're a political action committee. We've got to touch more and more people all the time and coalesce people that are coming together that want to work to maintain the sovereignty of every citizen. This takes some work. This takes a little bit of work. And please repost, because this is critical that we understand that the title of today's podcast is Follow the Money. And you could hear Governor Newsom bragging that California called it a donor state. You know, people are paying their taxes. And when I say people, I mean individuals and businesses. And California has a monster economy, and it has a port. It has a lot of advantages. But I'm going to just share with you that we have these protests now over immigration. They are already violent. They were violent in Minneapolis, and I said, elected Republican representatives, have you no comment on this? And of course, they didn't have any comments on it. And, you know, I commented on it, and I got some very scary response from the street. And one person called me a liar, and I said, well, okay, you know what? My mind's open. How am I lying? And I have tried to make clear, and I want to make clear again. I know that this last wave over the last 4 or 5 years under the Biden administration, this mass of humanity, over 10, 15 million people allegedly that came across this border, some 2 million that came in and they weren't even fingerprinted. We don't know who they are or where they are. Dangerous people, possibly, according to the border czar, Tom Homan. These people came in. They're everywhere in the major cities. And I know that this was a plan. This was not an organic kind of immigration. This was an organized, financed movement to bring people into this country. And I think it's in the Cloward-Piven model to overwhelm the country and break it, because that's the way you bring about a communist society, is you break the existing structures. That came right out of Columbia University, and people make fun of that now. This one guy made fun of me here as if it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay, it may not matter to you living out there in the suburbs, and I can't help it if you're stupid. That's not my problem. That's what's going on. We're fighting about that here in Minnesota. Who's going to get health care? Who's going to get this, that, thus, and so? But my point is, why does Newsom say this? What money are we following? And I'm going to just tell you how it goes down as a business owner, knowing many other business owners. When people come to get a job, you ask them for their Social Security number. They have to make certain statements. They have to fill out certain forms. When they fill them out, they get hired, and they're what would be considered legal employees. Now, I don't have this problem in Minnesota, but if you're in California, where it's alleged that half the state, or in Los Angeles, where half the population of the city are immigrants, new immigrants, or whatever the numbers are. I guess I need to research those numbers, because they shouldn't be bandied about lightly. But I have good friends out there, and here's what they tell me. And people that employ hundreds, I mean, I have a friend out there that employs maybe thousands of people, certainly hundreds. And every single person has a Social Security number. Well, the first thing that happened was he found out who the people were that weren't really supposed to be here. Because when the ICE raids started out in Los Angeles, they all disappeared, number one. Didn't man their stations. But what he said to me was very interesting. He said that, and this is what Newsom is saying, these people pay in Social Security, like when we pay Tanner. He gets Social Security taken out of his check, right? That's the way it goes down.
Yep.
That money is alleged to be there for you downstream. I wouldn't hold my breath, but it's supposed to be there for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been paying in since I was the first job I ever had. And I'm Social Security age right now, I could take out. But what if there was tens of millions of people that were paying in, but they weren't citizens, so they can't take out?
Ooh.
Never thought of that one, did you? Remember
Oh,
when
man.
Elon Musk said that Doge had found Social Security numbers in the database for people that were 100 years old, 110 years old, 150 years old, dead people? We're
Yeah.
not talking about a couple numbers now. We're talking about big volumes of Social Security numbers that were active for people that were dead. You know, there's a resale market in Social Security numbers. In other words, you follow the money. Just like we said in the last episode that there was 20 counties named as sanctuaries, and I'm listening to all these people say, "Oh, not my county, not my county." Okay. And one person told me, "Well, they got it all wrong. They used artificial intelligence to determine what counties were sanctuaries and what weren't." Well, okay, DHS, let's see another list. Because if I was going to program uh, artificial intelligence to tell me what counties were harboring illegal aliens as sanctuaries, I would just follow the money. Follow the money. I don't want to hear that there's no legislation. I don't want to hear that your sheriff is working with ICE. That none of that matters. That's who knows if that matters. Well, that does matter. But let's say, what if it's just about following the money? Just about following the money. And then that, the election integrity people say that this is a pool of votes that can be manipulated. I don't know. I'm just talking about things that as a political activist, I've heard for many years. I don't have 8x10 glossies. I don't know for sure that Elon Musk's Doge team found these Social Security numbers. But you remember when they reported that?
Yeah.
Crazy,
Yeah,
right?
because it wasn't it in 2022 there was a huge spike. Like they showed that graph on some stage where they were pointing out that there was
We
a
played
huge
it right
spike
on
in.
here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I don't remember what year that was. I think it was 2022, but there was some year within Biden's administration where it just spiked in Social Security numbers.
And all this money's getting paid in, and it never has to go back out. And we're not talking about a little bit of money. All of a sudden, if there's billions of dollars coming into the government that doesn't have to be paid back out, wouldn't that be kind of like a little black bag of cash where you can do whatever you want with it?
Yeah.
It'd be off the books. Do you know that there's central banks, right? And then there's the International Bank of Settlements, something that we've never talked about. And that's the central bank for central banks. And it has sovereign immunity, and it doesn't have to disclose when it moves money around the world. So let me see. There's billions of dollars coming in. Nobody knows about it. I'm just saying maybe. Maybe. Just a thought. You know, that in the spirit of to have a good idea, you have to have lots of ideas. I don't know.
Talk about using people though. Like bringing people in, and then if that is what's actually happening, that they're having them pay in the Social Security, and then they can never actually tap into it.
Well, this is the core of what my politics is about. Because the Democrat was the politics of the South, of slavery. That was the core of slavery was the Democrat Party. The Republican Party was formed for human well-being and human freedom. That's why I caucus with the Republicans. But, you know, they've been infected with this same idea. And here's the idea, it comes right out of the new physics. Matter is information. And that would mean that a human being is matter, is information to be monetized. And that's what you're talking about. The Democrat believes humanity is matter that can be monetized.
Yeah.
And it's in so many different ways. It just comes down to the basics of our economy. If your economy is uh, collapsing, being collapsed, and the corporations want more money, there's certain things people have to buy. I mean, if you can't go out and buy a new Chevrolet, you certainly got to go down and buy some noodles Well, the noodle company makes more money if there's more illegals in the country because they need noodles. It's cheap. And the noodle company, it's no longer owned by the people that started it. It's now owned by capital. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard own. There's only a handful of food distribution companies now, just like there's only a handful of media companies. This is matter as information, monetizing that information. They call it data, monetizing it. So you've got that possibly that Social Security money getting paid in. You got here these 20 sanctuary counties. They're getting $500 million from the feds. You got all these NGOs servicing these people. Then they're buying stuff, which is money. They're on the margins of society. They're always going to be a controlled group. They're always going to be a political football. This is a new wedge issue, which we're seeing play out all over the country. I mean, what do you do with these people? Now, the Trump administration is clearly removing the felons, and they've got new strategies to get these people out of the country. For example, if somebody came in the country and got expelled and then came back in again, that's a felony. Every sheriff, even in a sanctuary county, is duty bound to remove felons. So they have their strategies to roll these people up and get them out. And if you rolled up 3,000 a day, which is alleged to be the target, that's $1 million a year. There's 15 million of these people here, or more or less. Who knows? But my point is, this is a new political wedge issue. There's tremendous money involved with it, government money. We don't have a peep out of our elected representatives here in Minnesota on the Republican side. Why is that? Why are you not speaking out about this? Tom Emmer posted up something about rule of law in Los Angeles, not about rule of law here in Minnesota. And here's what really gets to me about this. Listen to this one, Tanner. You're going to like this. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I was in Costco just last night thinking about this podcast. And I looked at Costco, the people in Costco.
Mm.
And I thought about, wow, this doesn't look like the America I grew up in. There were people wearing burqas, and there were people speaking other languages. In fact, there was more people that were foreign to my experience than were common to my experience. In other words, there were more brown and black people in the store than there were white people, or at least it was 50-50.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, look what happened to my country. And then you know what I thought? There's another guy looking at me thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
You get me, right?
Yeah. I get
Can you feel me?
Yeah.
Makes it kind of a complicated issue, doesn't it? Because to that guy, I should get out of here too, shouldn't I? In fact, the root of the Republican Party goes back to the Whigs and the Know-Nothings, and they were committed. That party, before Abraham Lincoln broke off and formed the Republican Party, those Whigs, the precursor of the Republicans, they were committed to keeping Catholics and Jews out of the country. And they did a damn good job of it for a very long time. Violently, in fact, they had their own Antifa called the Know-Nothings. And then Lincoln said, no, we're not going to do this. We're not doing this. We're not going to do this. And he formed the Republican Party. People were Christians. But the people at the core of the evil don't think I belong here. They don't want any Jews in the country. They don't want Catholics in the country. So where do you draw the line? We're going to draw the line where? Oh, at Guatemalans. We're all good up to the Guatemala. When we get to the Guatemalans, these people got to go. I'm just saying, and I know this audience is mostly about expelling, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a mixed idea. But this is a complicated idea with no real dialogue going on about it. First of all, if there's 15 million people in the country and they're rounding up $1 million a year, that's a 15-year project, okay? At $3,000 a day. So they're not all going to go. What's good about the big, beautiful bill is they're going to secure that border. I mean, I want to have a sovereign country. And then my friend in California, who employs a lot of these folks because you don't stay in business otherwise. The backbone of the California economy is illegal immigrants. That's the backbone. If you took those people out of the California economy, it wouldn't be an economy. It'd collapse. And he told me the hardest working, best employees that he has is that cohort of folks. And you hear this from the Democrats. These people just want to work and pay taxes. Well, their inventory. And here's another part of it. These people are working, and my friend who's uber wealthy, I said, what do you pay these people? $20 an hour? He goes, 22. $22 an hour. Okay. In California, that's slave wages. Look at those slaves over there. So I don't recognize that I'm a slave, which is another part of this scam. As long as we've got another to demonize and to look at and say, you guys are the slaves, you're being monetized, I don't recognize that I'm a debt slave. I am participating in this system. This entire system is based on the British business model of slavery, drugs, and piracy. This slavery part, debt slavery, and some of these people are chattel slaves. They're actually enslaved. Sex slaves, indentured servants. This thing is out of control. And if you have a sanctuary city and the people that are those folks that are getting protected are getting monetized and enslaved, sanctuary for what? In other words, get your hands off my slaves?
Yeah.
What are we doing? No dialogue. On top of it, there's no dialogue about it. When you got a no-fly zone, and now we got this, riots are going to be everywhere, and these aren't your normal everyday riots. And then they say, well, and I'm listening to these people on X, the Democrats, peaceful protests. President Trump's calling out the National Guard and the Marines to stop a peaceful protest. He's causing the problems. Man, I just go on Sling. I got Sling on my phone over the weekend. I just went to CBS News in Los Angeles. I mean, to call that a peaceful protest, what do you want? I mean, compared to what? Machine gunning each other down in the streets? I guess compared to, urban violence with machine guns, automatic weapons, it's peaceful. But there's nothing peaceful about what I saw right on CBS News. So these people are willing to lie right to your face. I mean, right. I mean, I'm watching CBS News, and then I turn on MSNBC, and they're going, this is horrible. These are peaceful protests. Those protests were not peaceful. That's just the way it is. So now here we go.
We should take a road trip one of these times and go just see for ourselves.
Oh,
They're
we
a
don't have to
media
take
company.
We're not going to have to take a road trip. We just go on down to Lake Street. It's coming right here,
I'm
right
saying,
now.
Yeah, so then another state can't tell us that it's something ain't happening. We could go get.
Oh,
our
you
own
want to go?
coverage.
You want to go do some drone footage? You're more
That'd
than
be a
welcome.
Oh, that drone would be taken out so fast. They're at a protest, a drone flying through the sky.
Well, you can go down there and you can go film. I mean, this is 10 minutes from the studios where this is going to go down in Minneapolis, maybe 15. And it's very organized. We had this. There's a group that's leading this in LA. It's called Union del Barrio. Could you put up that picture of the Union del Barrio political program? Beautiful picture. I love that graph. Isn't that great? Wow. This is a Marxist-Leninist group, core beliefs and goals, opposition to U.S. imperialism, capitalism, and settler colonialism. Well, I agree with them. I'm in opposition to U.S. imperialism, settler colonialism, and capitalism is not the right word. Economic freedom. Let's get away from this capitalism idea because it's linked to imperialism and colonialism. I'm about economic freedom. Advocacy for immigration rights against deportations and ICE raids. Okay, that's for community discussion. Promotion of community organizing in working class Latino neighborhoods. That's called making communists. These people got the juice to go out and organize, but the conservatives that voted for Trump, they're calling it in and hoping for the best. We're going to lose, okay? We got people that are organizing. We better get organized. We're going to help you do it here at Free People Radio. Support for socialist and pan-Latino unity movements. Great. Education and youth empowerment through political study and activism. I'm a big believer. I was talking with an activist on X over the weekend about this. The Republican Party of Minnesota needs to be an educational organization. It is not. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with organization, and that's internally. And I think some of this money that funds these organizations, I think it comes right from China. China is very active in asymmetrical warfare against the United States. I mean, there's well documented research, publication in Chinese, implementation of plans of asymmetrical warfare that the Chinese military has dreamed up, and they're implementing. Since I saw you last, a Chinese researcher at the University of Michigan has been arrested. Her boyfriend was stopped trying to come in the country carrying biological agents. It was a fungus called Fusarium graminearum. Fusarium graminearum. It is a mold that causes head blight on staple crops, devastating them. People that eat that head blight get sick. This could devastate our food supply. And what I thought was so interesting about this story is, number one, it comes right on the heels of President Trump saying he's going to expel students that are studying in critical areas of research at our elite institutions. And then they came out with this story. I don't know. I mean, is this true? Is it false? I'm not there. I don't have any 8x10 glossies myself. But what I found really weird was the guy that was smuggling the fungus in the country, they turned him back and sent him back to China. So his girlfriend's in jail. That's a strange story. Anyhow, look at the vulnerabilities in our country. Look at the vulnerabilities in our country when we have people that really don't like the country. I mean, you don't burn down something you love. You just don't. Look at all this chaos, violence, destruction, all of these agents working in our country to change it, to destroy it. And what are they destroying? Republicanism. Why are they destroying republicanism? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to let you think about it. The United Nations vetoed a UN resolution calling for a Gaza ceasefire. Why did it go down? Because the United States was the only state that voted against the resolution. All the 14 members of the UN, what I like to call the Insecurity Council, voted for this, and the United States voted against it because the resolution was not linked to the release of the remaining hostages. It did not condemn Hamas's deadly attacks on Israel, and it did not demand that the militant group disarm and withdraw from Gaza. In other words, the United Nations was blocked from demanding a immediate and permanent ceasefire. So, okay, great. Let the killings continue. That's in the Middle East. In the Ukraine, Russia launched its biggest drone attacks ever on the Ukraine. That's rolling along more and more intensely. We got so much news to cover, as I said at the beginning. I don't know where to start, don't know where to finish. And let me just say, because I'm going to forget, and I forget every time, if you like the content here at Free People Radio, please support us. Please. We're in the tire business. That's one of the ways we want to support the content. TireGet.com. It's everything you need in tires. 25% of you are going to buy tires this year. Please, when you go to TireGet, the price is right. I assure you. The service is top notch. I assure you, you'll save money and you will be able to support this content. As we say, you have to buy your tires from someone. You buy them from TireGet, and you're supporting the movement, which I think is great. You can go to the Free People store, which I'm going to see get spruced up, buy a coffee mug, buy a T-shirt. We thank you for your support. We need it. Thank you for the people that keep sending me money. Wow, is that ever? Every time I go to the post office box, there's some checks in there, which I just, man, that makes you really feel like you have a responsibility to the community when people are actually coming out of their pockets and saying, I value this so much, I want to send you my money. Now, within the quid pro quo on that one is, please keep turning out good content, which, that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of thought. The United States refuses air cover for 80 European reassurance force in a post-war Ukraine. That's President Trump saying, I'm thinking about getting out of NATO. And I'm going to tell you right now, I hope the United States withdraws from NATO. NATO, we're going to talk about it just in a minute. NATO, unnecessary for the United States of America. If the Europeans want to defend themselves, let them go defend themselves. President Trump is demanding that the European countries go to 5% of their gross domestic product to be allocated towards defense purchases and defense allocations. Holland just slapped down a proposal to increase its defense spending to 3.5% of its gross domestic product. So if these folks don't want to defend themselves, why do I want my 5 military-age children and my stepson to go over there and get killed? I don't. I really don't like to see any tyranny, any problems, any killing anywhere in the world. If you really, a lot of people say they believe in God. That's easy. And I'm sure you do. It's a lot harder to do what God tells you to do. And he says, treat your neighbor as you want to be treated, which means, you don't kill people. And this whole military thing is the glorification of killing and organizing it in the name of the state because the state's in control instead of the word of God. Great. We're kind of going down the wrong path to start out with. These people have been in 3 continent-wide wars in 100+ years. It's one war. I mean, these people, don't you ever get tired? Do you ever have any friends that are always getting in fights and you're always getting in between them, trying to make things work out? And then finally you just say, okay, you know what? I give. Have at it. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, just recently, actually. I don't. I just separated myself from those friends.
You can't do anything about it. They want to beat each other up. Go. Just go. It's like these 2 people at the SD45 boardroom that got in a fight right in a sworn-in Republican Party meeting. They were both friends of mine. And somebody said to me afterwards, why didn't you get up to break it up? Why would I? You 2 knuckleheads want to fight each other? You can't use your words in a Republican Party sworn-in meeting. And then one of them is now on the CD3 executive board. Can't use your words to avoid a fight, but you're leading the charge in the Republican Party. If you'd taken it outside afterwards, it would have had a degree of cool to it. But losing your composure in a meeting where we pursue self-governance through dialogue and there's a fist fight, I don't know. Seems to me we're getting a little bit far from the path when we do that. Kind of like the allegations that Elon Musk and Scott Bessent got into a fight right in the Oval Office. Did you hear that one?
I did not.
Oh, the allegation is out there that Secretary of the Treasury Bessent accused Elon Musk of being a fraud. And Elon Musk charged him and ran into him, gave him a shoulder block in the chest, and Scott Bessent deftly moved to the side and popped Elon right on the side of the head, and he had that big shiner.
Wait, that's what that. Wait, you're being serious right now? That
I'm being serious.
Oh my gosh,
No,
I gotta watch my mouth. Why am I swearing so much this morning?
oh, you're gonna have to censor yourself. Good for you. Okay. China and the United States are meeting. The aforementioned Scott Bessent is, as we watch this together tonight, he is in London with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and the Trade Representative, Jameson Greer. They are meeting to discuss the numerous issues that divide the United States and China on trade issues. The United States representatives have issued good reports. Donald Trump has said there's good things happening, and the Chinese did not say a word. Not a word. Did you find that online, that there's an alleged fight?
Oh no, I didn't even look it up. I just took your word for it.
Oh,
I want. Is there a
don't
video?
take my word for anything out there. I want everybody here to self-govern. If you hear me say something and you doubt it, go look it up. If I'm wrong, correct me. You know, people correct me, and I appreciate it. I don't have a lot of ego tied up in this. I really am trying to search for truth with you. I am asking for us to cooperate as a community to research the issues. When I say on this immigration issue, it troubles me because I know the same people that want to expel these newcomers, as President Biden called them, would have certainly expelled me. And I even said this is why Jewish people are so pro-open borders. I am not. I want to have a country. I just know that the numbers involved are so tremendous that some of these people are going to be here. Do you see a 15-year effort to expel 3,000 people a day? I mean, is that possible? Like we're going to have mega Republicans in charge of all levels of government for the next 15 years. Well, if we do, all these people could get expelled. It's possible. President Eisenhower had the first mass deportation program. And as I said, you're not going to believe the name if you don't remember it. Do you remember the name of that operation? Last time I told you couldn't believe it. Do you remember it?
No, I do not.
Operation Wetback.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one.
They actually called it that. Things have changed since the 50s, haven't they? Operation Wetback. Okay. I mean, really, we've come a long way. We wouldn't call it that today. But, you know, it's the same problem. It's the same problem. I want all these felons, you know, the monetization of these people. My problem is with it is it's such a big money deal. They're trying to get the felons out of here right now, which is great. Drug traffickers, human traffickers, people that have multiple reentries, and who knows what else. They're trying to get these folks out of our cities. Here in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department just issued a statement today that they would not be assisting federal authorities in this effort. Just today, I read it. So there's a lot of warp and woof on this. President Trump is using his emergency powers to boost U.S. critical minerals extraction and refinement. He used the Defense Production Act to bolster domestic production. Guess what? That's a wartime act. We have all these minerals here that are in China. We just had environmental concerns because we'd moved so far up the value chain that we decided we were going to stop ripping the tops off of mountains. Well, some mountaintops are coming off. The rare earth minerals are not that rare. It's just that the extraction thereof is quite messy. So much news to go through. I'm going to have to, here I go. I'm going to pass all this news, and we're going to go to my new short that we're going to play. Why don't you play that piece from the Beverly Hillbillies?
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
You ever watched an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies?
No, it looks like fun though.
It was the kind of fun that would rot your brain.
It's probably better than most cartoons today, though. Was
Well,
that like a kid's show or was
No,
that...
it was primetime entertainment for adults.
Oh,
It was a comedy.
Like Modern Family kind of thing? Sitcom?
I wouldn't call it Modern Family.
Okay.
It was just kind of it was just entertainment. I mean, I don't even know what it was, actually. We had quite a few shows like that. We had Green Acres and Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, they were just stories of fanciful family relations that were supposed to be funny. It was in a time when America was so safe and secure. I guess it was a cartoon with real live action characters, is what it was.
Yeah, kind of
But
that slapstick here.
yeah, it was a little bit of, it was just a comedy. But my point in playing that is up from the ground came a bubbling crude. And, you know, the protagonist of the series, played by Buddy Epson, was out trying to shoot a rabbit, and he missed and hit an oil field. You know, it's hilarious, right? And I only play it to say that President Trump is trying to revitalize and to invigorate our domestic oil production. And he wants to drill, baby, drill. And there's a lot of issues with this. And the issue is the cost of production, the cost. There's oil wars from time to time, oil wars, where the people that have the oil don't want new entries. There's something called OPEC, the Organization of the Oil Producers. And they actually set targets for all their members, and they really do control the price of this commodity the best that they can. And in these oil wars previously, they've been very successful of wiping out the United States industry because our cost of production is high. A lot of our oil is coming from fracking. Now, you know what fracking is, right?
Yeah.
Fracking is expensive. The last oil war was 2014 to 2016, and at that time, the U.S. shale oil producers had a break-even price point of about 70 per barrel. So when the OPEC producers took the price down under 70, it curtailed U.S. exploration and extraction and bankrupted a lot of these oil producers here, particularly in West Texas, in what's called the Permian Basin. Well, then they worked at it, and technology improved, and they got the price per barrel to frack down to about $35 per barrel. Pretty big improvement through technology. A recent Dallas Fed survey suggests that today, for a new well drilled out in the West Texas area, the Permian Basin, that's out in Midland, Texas, the streets are paved with gold out there. If you stay at the no-tell motel, it's $500 a night. It's something else. It's crazy. The new wells are the break-even point is around $65 per barrel of oil. And let's just see. I like to give you on something like this because I watch this every day because I'm actually in this business, servicing this industry. The price this morning of a barrel of oil is, let's see here. Oh, that's currencies. I have to watch that too. Commodities. The price is today $65.54 a barrel. How interesting. The break even is $65.54. Excuse me, the break even is $65 and the price today is $65. I wonder who engineered that. And who that would be Donald Trump. Because who he's competing with is the Saudis and that crew over there in the Middle East. Because, you know, those folks, they were out shooting rabbits. And as a matter of fact, up from the ground did come that bubbling crude. In fact, sometimes you'd be walking around in the sand dunes and there'd be an ocean oil just sitting right there on top of the sand dunes. They didn't know what to do with it back in the day. They probably lit it on fire for fun.
The lake of fire.
Well, there wasn't that much entertainment 500 years ago, right? Hey, let's light this oil on fire, sit back and smoke a pipe, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Anyhow, or whatever they smoked back in those days. Because in Saudi, the price of extracting a barrel of oil, guess what? It's $3 a barrel.
What?
When it comes bubbling up from the ground, it costs them today $3 a barrel. $3.
Oh, man.
So when you see the United States is in the oil game and our break-even point on new wells is 65 and the price is 65, That's because Donald Trump had a meet. Remember when he went over and sat down with the Saudis?
Yeah.
I know what he told them. If that price doesn't stay at 65, you guys are on your own. I'm going to take all my jets and all my troops, and I'm going to go home, and we'll see how long you folks last when the United States is not backing up your play. And Shazam, break even. There you go. The President Trump administration has signaled that reciprocal tariffs will be returning on the 10th of July. Strap in on this one. We'll see what happens there. President Trump is removing rabid pro-Israel diplomats and researchers from the Department of Defense and from other agencies of the federal government. We'll have to talk about that on Thursday because time is short. The Department of Education says my daughter's school, Columbia University's, is failing to meet its accreditation standards. I wonder what that means. All that money to get her through that school. She's supposed to graduate next year. Maybe she won't be able to get a degree. I want a refund.
I hope that doesn't happen to her.
I begged her not to go there.
I know, but if she's made
If you're
it so
listening,
far
honey,
already.
Your school is no longer meeting the standard to give you a degree. I wish you'd listen to me. That didn't go down well around the household there and led to lots of problems, and we're going to talk about that on Thursday. So there's this big brouhaha between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Their bromance has turned into a feud.
Yeah.
So much a feud, in fact, as we were saying earlier, that it looks like Scott Benson popped him on the side of the head.
Yeah.
Looks like it. The black eye was there.
It was there, but I was doing reading and I don't know. I didn't see any mention about there being a physical altercation
Look
besides
farther.
the check.
You're looking in the wrong places.
Probably.
You might have to go into the dark part of the web. Anyhow, they're arguing. And what Elon triggered this fight over, and they've since kind of had a little bit of a rapprochement because Elon has been posting some very pro-Trump information since the riots have broken out in California. But before things settled down, Musk was going after this big, beautiful bill that had passed the House and said it was pork-filled, it was an abomination, and it needs to be defeated. And I've been saying on the podcast, you can't trust these people. The bill has been scored anywhere from adding to the national debt to actually reducing it. And, you really can't tell. Elon decided that it was adding to the debt or that it could certainly be improved. And I looked at the feud and I thought to myself, okay, this is politics. This is just politics. It's just like when these two guys got in a fight at SD45. It was politics by another means. I had to resign because they were both my friends, which some people believe was the point of the fight. Because one of them is no longer my friend. And, the allegations have been made that was orchestrated, an orchestrated fight to take down the first America First executive committee in CD3, which took me years to put together. And it is no more. And it fell apart because of the actions, really, of one person who was my friend, who I'd put a lot of time into. And I'm not in his head, and I don't have any 8x10 glossies, and I really don't know. But the allegations were made not by me, but people came to me and said it was a setup. I don't know. And I don't know about this Elon-Trump thing. Could that be a setup? I don't know. But I know it's politics, and I'll tell you why it's politics. Because that bill that passed the House could be improved. Elon Musk is correct. Donald Trump is achieving many of his policy goals in that bill. But to get the support, to get those House members to vote for the bill, there is a lot of things in that bill that I don't like. For example, no state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, or automated decision systems during the 10 years period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. I don't think that's what Elon didn't like. See, this stuff is so dense and so tricky. But let me just share with you something that is really critical for us to understand as American citizens. Because I ask this on the podcast all the time. Why do people get elected, Tanner? And when they get there, they immediately sell out and turn into, you can edit this out, shitbags. I mean, they're there. They, all of them before they get there, they're all something sincere. Not all of them, but a lot of them have some sincerity to them or elements of their presentation that are sincere. And then they get into power where they're sitting in a powerful seat. They're not powerful. They're sitting in a seat that was there before they got there and will be there after they leave. The seat is always there. For example, there are 535 seats of power in our Congress. There's 435 congressional people, men and women, elected in the congressional districts. We have 8 of them here in Minnesota. 4 are held by Democrats and 4 are held by Republicans. And then when there's 2 senators from every state, there's 50 states. That's 535 elected representatives. And when they get there, they no longer represent us. And that is so frustrating. And we call them sellouts. Well, there's only so much you can get through campaign finance, and campaign finance is pretty tightly regulated. And then there's something called lobbying. Have you heard of lobbying, young man?
Yeah, I know what lobbying is.
Great. Well, I really never thought about it like I'm thinking about it now, because I took all the lobbying money. I think we did it live on the show, and I followed up on it. Remember, I was having you calculate stuff on your calculator while we were talking on the last show?
Yeah.
And we determined that every seat, and I went back and looked at this carefully, all 535 seats, each seat gets an expenditure every year of $6.92 million of lobbying. If you take all the lobbying money that's spent every year and divide it by 535, it's $6.92 million per seat. And that is why they don't represent us. They don't represent us because we don't have that kind of juice. These companies, pharma, big tech, the military industrial complex, the National Association of Realtors, I mean, they're spending so much money. And when you add it all together, it's $7 million a seat. And what did they get for $7 million? They got a $37 trillion debt out of the deal. That's what happened. Actually, $37 billion went in over the last 10 years, and the debt ended up being $37 trillion. And that is 0.1%. And I'm saying the outcome is the debt, because the debt financed guns and butter. We're all living high on the hog here. Not all of us. But even if you're poor, there's programs for you that keeps you off the streets. And then there's people on the streets too. It's a mess. But $7 million a seat. And I want to tell you how big $37 trillion of debt is. If you took 37 trillion seconds, it's 1,172,760 years ago. That's how many 37 trillion seconds are. If you can get it in your mind that way, that is a long time. Over 1 million years is 37 trillion seconds. So these lobbyists that come in, they come in through all kinds of methods. They hold fundraisers for the candidates. Like the lobbyist says, hey, come on over to my mansion here in Washington, and one of our Congress people, like a Fishbach or a Stauber or an Emmer or a Finstead, show up, and they go to the lobbyist's party, And there's all these rich people there, and they can all give the maximum. I think it's $3,500 a cycle. They all give the money. It's a collection deal because politics seems to be money, right? And then there's parties and trips, and then the lobbyists do local PAC money where they manipulate the thinking of people in their own districts. Like I was watching on MSNBC, and they're talking about how great AI is. They got advertisements on there. I'm sure some of you have seen them. How great AI is, how great it is. And I'm saying, man, no, it's not great. That's lobbying. Somebody's paying for that. Somebody's paying for it. So when we talk about why our system is getting perverse, it's because a lot of money gets spent on perverting it. And that's how wars get started. That's how wars get started. Because there are people that want wars, and they're out there lobbying for war. And these people sell out, and they're dependent on the money to keep their jobs in show business. And let's talk about what's going on in terms of war. War. You know, before the United States entered World War II, President Roosevelt clearly wanted to get involved in World War II, but there was an America First movement between World War I and World War II that said, let the Europeans kill each other. We want to stay here and live our lives and have peace and prosperity. And when Hitler had conquered France and there was still Winston Churchill to deal with, he was imploring Churchill to cut a deal. Now, scholars will say that was a scam, and I've read the speeches, and they could have been a scam, but you got to listen to the words coming out of Hitler's mouth. He said, can we make a deal? I want to go to war with you. And then they started having the war start heating up, and Hitler was bombing only military installations in Great Britain. And then Churchill said, and there is good evidence of this, said, you know what? We want Hitler to bomb our population centers so that there is an escalation that leads to the United States entry into the war. Because when the United States sees that London is getting bombed and Liverpool is getting bombed, for example, that's going to encourage the Americans to enter the war. So, you know, Churchill sent the RAF, the Royal Air Force, to bomb Berlin night after night after night. The Germans were bombing air bases and radar stations, and Churchill was bombing the population centers of Germany. And Hitler was saying, knock this off, or you're going to make me bomb London. And Churchill didn't, and London got bombed, and the war was escalated. Well, okay, what happened since over the last couple of weeks? The Ukrainians are now bombing deep into Russia. They're bombing Moscow. And there is a general escalation of tensions, a general ratcheting up the threat ladder, making it harder to get to peace and easier to see the war spread. And then you got American elected officials, Blumenthal, Graham, an ex-elected official, an ex-government member, Pompeo, in the Ukraine, stirring the pot while President Trump is trying to have peace talks in Istanbul. In other words, there are people doing things that are antagonistic to what the administration's policy, which is to bring about peace, seems to be. And there even seems to be information leaking out that the information that's being put in front of President Trump is being selected to make him look one direction instead of the other. That's just like the news. What you look at is what you know. What about all the things we don't look at? I mean, that's really critical. Same thing in World War II, in the lead up to World War II. First of all, the United States started colonizing the Pacific. British had colonized the Pacific. The British had taken Hong Kong, for example. Malaya. The United States had Midway Island. The United States had the Philippines. I mean, this was right in Asia. And the Japanese were saying to their Asian brothers and sisters, which was kind of a scam too, let's expel these Occidental invaders with their business model of slavery, drugs, and piracy. Let's expel them from the Pacific. And this tension was building up. And then guess what happened? President Roosevelt and Great Britain, Churchill, stopped oil from reaching Japan. They cut the Japanese off on the oil. And what did Japan conclude? We have to attack. We have to get control of oil because our industrial machine is going to collapse without it. Does this sound familiar? Did we not just play on the last podcast Graham and Blumenthal bragging that there's a sanctions bill in the Senate that aims to cut off Russia from its ability to sell oil to China, cutting off Chinese access to oil? Didn't we? Do you think that the PhDs that got their degrees from Harvard and Columbia and Yale and Princeton, do you think they studied this, what happened in World War II? That there was colonialism moving towards Japan the way NATO has moved towards the Russian border? That energy and critical supplies were used to cut the Japanese off in an attempt to blunt their efforts to attack China? And now we're doing the exact same thing again today. Do you think people have studied this and said, this is a good way to start a war and make the people believe that the war is justified? Because how many people really, regular grundoons, I like using that word. I learned that word from Steve Bannon. It's a cool word. How many regular people want to go to war? Do you want to go to war?
Hell no.
Okay, great. So when you get attacked, like the United States was attacked on December 7th, 1941, then we were all united on taking revenge and getting into war. It's called a false flag. So here we're doing it again. NATO has moved, as we talked about in the last podcast, moved right to the Russian border, just the way the United States moved right into Asia with colonialism. Same thing, only a little bit different. Cutting off the resources, again, threatening to, just like happened the last time. We're being set up for a world war. And then they're building the data centers and the power stations to fuel them. And why would you do that? What's going to happen to our economy if there's really a shooting war? It's going to collapse. There's going to be chaos. There's already chaos in the streets. And the way to control that chaos is data. And instead of working towards peace and prosperity, we're working in another direction. And, please write your Congress people. And then we got our elected representatives right here in our party. And I had a recent podcast where I urged the Republican Party of Minnesota to stop praying before the meetings because it is an organization filled with liars, filled with liars. And there's a very strong movement in the party to become a pro-choice party in an effort to attract liberal white women to the party. And I got a letter in the mail, an email. Well, it came by snail mail also, from Alex Plekish, the chairman of the party. And he just went off and prayed from beginning to the end of this letter. I mean, I've got all these prayers that he quotes in here. And then he goes on to say, and while some of the battle takes place across the aisle, I've learned that many of the wounds we endure, he meant that he endures, come from within. To borrow a phrase from Shakespeare, we face not only opposition from without, but also the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune from within our own ranks. That's painful but not unexpected, as I come to see more clearly in my time as chairman. Politics isn't for the faint of heart, but we have an anchor in God's word. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And Alex just quotes biblical verse after biblical verse. Okay, Alex, and to everybody else in the Republican Party, I'm just going to say, I am not stupid. And the people in the party are not stupid. We have a big divide in the party. In fact, someone called me last night and said the party wants to hold a softball game, Rhinos against Patriots, because there's a big effort now being made to get the Patriots to give it up in pursuit of victory. Victory. And, we're going to talk about this on the next podcast, the idea of outflanking. Outflanking is a big part of war. It's a big part of fighting, and it's a big part of politics. The Patriots, the MAGA movement, is accused of being white Christo nationalists. That's the accusation. We talked about it just last week. An article in the Star Tribune, a columnist went and participated in a Patriot Academy training, and her conclusion was that it was about white Christians and politics and that that's not what this country is about. Okay, well, I'm all for people praying. I'm all for people believing. That's what I'm trying to restore as part of the mission of the podcast. But the outflanking that the establishment is willing to do, the lengths that this is a group of people that have lied consistently and continue to lie. For the safety of the people participating in the party, for our safety, let's stop praying because we're asking for an ass kicking. This is the violation of one of the 10 commandments. We do not use the Lord's name in vain. If we all make a commitment to telling the truth, if we all make a commitment not to saying we believe in God, but actually struggling to follow God's precepts, I'll have a very different attitude and I'll be all about praying as a group. But now we're using the outflanking maneuver because the establishment knows that many, if not most, if not all, almost all of the MAGA movement people are coming at this with some kind of a religious frame, some kind of a Christian frame of reference that's motivating and animating their sojourn in politics. So what does the establishment do? It wraps itself in biblical verse so that the participants in the party, who's going to get on the other side of biblical verse? So it brings us all together. It is a craven manipulation using God as a tool to create solidarity in the party. And baby, when you're going to use God like that, when you use God, whoa, that's getting out on a limb. I am not going to participate in using God. When I pray here, I'm praying for myself. I'm praying to show you what I'm doing. This is my podcast. I go about my life in a certain fashion. And when I do things like, oh, God, please do this, please, I immediately can correct myself. And I think of all the blessings that I can thank God for. Like, thank you for creating me in your image. Thank you for making me an American. Thank you for making me free. Thank you for healing the blind. Thank you for feeding the people. I don't say, dear God, please make me king. That's not up to me, and that's not the way I want to pray. And I don't believe that kind of prayer is correct. And I certainly am not doing it to bring you to my camp. I'm just saying that we're lacking in a religious sensitivity and a reverence for the unknown because we live in the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. So when my cohorts in the party are outflanking the MAGA movement and trying to confuse the participants in the party by using prayer as a tool, really as a weapon, weaponizing prayer for a political outcome to create social solidarity within the party, this I must reject. And I would be much happier knowing the level of lying, knowing the level of manipulation, knowing the level of faithlessness that exists within the party, knowing those things and knowing that we have to accept that that's politics. Let's just stop praying until we sort this out. We can all pray privately. We can all pray fervently, but let's not use prayer. Let's not use prayer and then elect people that want to send my children off to get killed in wars of discretion because somebody paid $7 million a seat to tell us that that's the right thing to do. As long as we have these unholy ambitions of globalism, of world imperialism, of settler colonialism, which we do, as long as we're still doing this, let's not pray about it. Not because prayer's wrong. It's wrong to pray in this way. And for those of you that don't agree with me, pray away and let's see what happens. And for those of you who do agree with me, let's pray properly, quietly, in our own hearts, in our own families, and not use the Lord's name in vain. And on that note, I want to thank you for being with me tonight. I had a good time. Tanner, thank you for being here this morning.
Of course.
And God willing, we'll see you again on Thursday night.
Have a good night, everybody.